And that's the beauty of creativity. No, it doesn't take up more time. It saves time, because where time is taken up needlessly, you will find it cut out, because someone will have an idea to reduce that period of time that something takes. Creativity is the jewel in the crown in any workplace. And let me explain why. If I take, for example, Disney, the whole enterprise is driven by a creative mindset. I know this because I brought and hosted Disney masterclasses in Scotland for 2 consecutive years. And we got all the big companies coming out, all of the big companies in Scotland. And they took away something really quite profound from this. And this was that Disney has creativity rooted in its DNA. I mean, if you think, for example, that their whole business is about creating magic memories for people. You're not called a staff member, you're called a cast member. And the people who are there as customers are guests. Little switches in language. But it is also encouraging people to be creative at the point of connection with the customer, the guest. And if I give you one example of that, which sticks out, and all these ideas came from staff because they came across a challenge, and the challenge created a bit of friction between customer and Disney, and they needed to do something about that to remove all of that. The first example is the Tower of Terrors, where people go on this tour in this tower and it's all shaky and it's scary. But if you're under a certain height, they have deemed it unsafe. Now, that applies to children, of course, little children. But they don't say, excuse me, you're too small, you can't come on this. You'll have to wait with one of our helpers while your family goes on this tour. They don't do that. They get down their knees and they say, how would you like to go on a tour that your mum and dad, your big brother and your big sister can't go on? And every child says, yes. So they've captured a moment which could be problematic and disappointing, and they've taken something from that that's even more exciting than the child was anticipating, a special treat for them. And when they come back, they measure them up, they've got this measuring thing, and they say, see, when you reach this height, here's 4 vouchers for you and your family to come back. Free. Now, that is genius. As genius as their approach to queues, because the Disney approach is the person at the front of the queue should feel no more privileged, no more excited, no more of a sense of anticipation than the person at the back of the queue. So they have to do something. So they entertain people at the back of the queue. They keep the thing moving so that you're always involved and people are there for every part of that queue, because it can be quite frustrating. And we know in Britain, we love queuing, don't we? And it's very difficult. Someone comes in the front of the queue, you get really agitated. It's become a kind of tension that we live with in our lives. Imagine if that tension is taken away. That is what Disney does brilliantly. Do you know the 3 most frequently asked questions at Disney in Florida is? Well, the first one is, where's the toilet? You would expect that. The second one is, where is Mickey Mouse? Where can we find him? And the third is, when is the 2 o'clock parade? Now, you could roll your eyes and you could say, oh, it's at 2 o'clock, stupid. But they don't. They say, I'm so glad you asked me that, because I know a brilliant place for you to stand. And by the way, it is leaving at 2 o'clock today. But I see you're from Scotland and you've got pale skin, so you might not want to be in the baking hot temperature in the gaze of the sun. So they take them somewhere and they say, look, this is an ice cream parlour. You stand in front of that and you'll get the cool breeze from the ice cream parlour. You'll be shaded from the sun. And by the way, you get first dibs in the ice cream. Turning that question into a triumph, because they know that when is the 2 o'clock parade is an anxiety question. So they record all these questions. So they know what the most frequently asked questions are, and they learn how to respond to them. That's another bit of creativity. Now, creativity is not something that should take up time. It should shorten time, because you're looking at ways to do things better, to create a more fun workplace, to get more performance out of the staff, to create a better relationship with the customer, to create moments of delight. And remember, Disney is creating magic memories. They want to exceed customers' expectations. So when you give people that challenge to be part of the solution to every problem, you know you're onto a winner. And that's the beauty of creativity. No, it doesn't take up more time. It saves time, because where time is taken up needlessly, you will find it cut out, because someone will have an idea to reduce that period of time that something takes. That's the beauty of creativity. There are so many examples I could give you of creativity. Look at somewhere like Southwest Airlines, whose mission is a warrior spirit and a fun-loving attitude. By the way, their vision is the world's most loved and profitable airline. That's what they want to be. And they have succeeded, incidentally. But, they're attracting, aspiring comedians, people at drama college. So they turn this experience of flying. Yes, there's a risk with flying. They don't want to focus on the risk. People become worried about that. And you expect your airline to have all the safety measures in place. And they do them sometimes in a really jokey way. And it's just dynamite. 1 in 10 people don't like that. But they're not serving that one person. They're serving the other 9. And it was a genius moment to turn, flying from functional to fun. That's creativity. And they attract the people that help them to deliver that. That's genius. That is why creativity should be part of the mindset of the organization. And it's not taking up time with sitting around with Lego bricks. It's about being part of an organization that is always looking to do things better, to do things faster, to make things frictionless, to move the customer onto a new level of gratitude. That is where creativity comes in. So it is something I talk about a lot. And by the way, when you move people from being employees to employees who are also solution solvers, then you move them into the creative mindset, because they will find ways to do things better, faster, all the rest of it. That is the beauty of creativity and encouraging it in the workplace. No, it shouldn't take up a lot of space. I've done lots of creative sessions, and ideas have come out of these that have changed the whole trajectory of the company. That's what I'm talking about. I remember working with a large care organisation, and they had a head office in the centre of the city. And all the people that were out there delivering care on a daily basis had a different kind of job, because if they didn't turn up to meet and look after the older person in care, then they knew that something might go wrong and they would be held responsible, because they felt responsible. They felt this commitment to the people they served on a daily basis. So the report during a particularly snowy week, this was in Scotland a few years ago, during a particularly snowy week, the people at head office took time off, because getting to the snow from perhaps an outer part of the city, but not necessarily an outer part of the city, stayed off because of the snow. The people that were out there, sometimes in rural areas, would walk through the snow. They would climb over fences to make sure they got to their client. And then one group of them, organised a caravan and stayed in the caravan so they were close to their clients, these older people that needed care. Now, the difference is the people who had the commitment to the client, who knew the client, who knew that they were vulnerable, who knew that they were human, they had real meaning in their work. So meaning is important. If you've got a purpose when you go to work, it becomes, the work takes on a new meaning. You find yourself running to work. You find yourself thinking about it the night before. You wake up with a sense of purpose. The difference is huge. Now, we all know the story of Lyndon B. Johnson visiting NASA on a presidential visit. And as he was wandering around, there was a little old man who was sweeping up. And he said to him, "So what is your job, sir?" And the little old man said, "Mr. President, I help put space rockets in the sky." He felt he was part of the same commitment as everyone else had in that organization to put rockets into the sky. That's purpose. The Americans do it better than we do it. And I'll tell you why. It's because the whole vision statement thing, the whole kind of mission thing was born in America, and they got better at it. They got better at it. So when they say, your job here is to help to put space rockets in the sky. I remember when Sir Alex Ferguson was manager of Manchester United, and he said, "Why do all the different parts of this organisation go to different Christmas parties?" He says, "I want them all together." So they hired a huge venue, they brought them all together. The people who worked in the shops, the security people, the people that worked in the offices, the first team players, the reserve players, and the youth players. And he brought them all together and he said, "We are all responsible for putting a winning team on the park on a Saturday." And the response was amazing, because people suddenly felt they had skin in the game, that they were responsible. They weren't just, nobodies who did the washing up of the strips after the game. And Alex Ferguson was frequently found in the bowels of Old Trafford, having cups of tea with the woman that did the washing of the strips after a match. Now, that is the difference I'm talking about between having people, wherever they are in the organisation, having this shared purpose. So wherever they are, back to the care organisation, what they did after that was to make sure that everyone who works in the head office knew the people out there. They knew of their progress. So they felt they had a stake in recovery or helping someone to die even, gracefully and in peace. That is the kind of thing that organisations, when they get it right, it is huge. It's monumental. Because you've got, 500 people, all with the same commitment, because you have turned this organization into one that's got a shared purpose. And when people have a shared purpose, every single thing they do, they know what it's going towards. Now, I once worked with an organization, and it was a huge organization, right? And I said, I want everyone here. I want everyone to come to this. And they said, what? Even the cleaners? I said, absolutely the cleaners. And of course they said, what are we doing here? And they said, we've got nothing to say. But as we warmed up and people were thinking of solutions to the problems, the challenges, the cleaners, one of them put their hand up and said, look, I don't know if this is the kind of thing you're looking for, but it's very difficult for us when we come in the morning and people's desks are packed with stuff piled on top of them, because we can't clean the desk. And if we try and move things and put them back, we'll do something wrong and we'll get into trouble. So that was something that they saw from their perspective. And people in the room, when I asked them, acknowledged the fact that if the cleaners didn't turn up early in the morning, they would arrive and there'd be cups lying in the sink. There'd be waste paper baskets full and overflowing. Their desk wouldn't be clean. All sorts of things would be lying around that shouldn't be lying around. So they got an appreciation of the cleaners, and the cleaners then became part of that operation. They became a key part. Everyone then knew their names and they would talk to them. They'd leave notes for them. And by the way, the cleaners had a card that they made up, and they put it on their desk and they said, tonight we're going to clear your desk. Could you make sure there's nothing on it? We want to clean it and make it right for you in the morning. That is what purpose is about. Now, in business, You can have something that you know you've got to do, you've got a role. But if you're in finance, for example, and someone says to them, what do you think of? And they say, look, I just work in finance. No, they don't. Finance is just as much as part of the customer experience as every other part of the organization. So when you get that focus, that purpose, it just accelerates the energy, the commitment, and the teamwork that is required to deliver the very best. And it allows people to step into a space that they've never occupied before. They've got a stake in delivering to the customer. Whatever the business is, that is something I talk about a lot. And it is immense when you see the difference it makes when everyone has got a stake in the output, the outcome of the organization. I want them to know that they have got value, no matter where they sit in the organization, that they have got ideas, that they are drivers of the purpose, not just little cogs in a machine, that they are vital to the cause, and that they have got so much more they can give, and that the more they feel they can give, the more energized they become. So this is a really inspiring speech in that people leave smiling, they feel they're talking to each other, they're enthused by ideas, and they feel a new sense of energy and empowerment. And it helps the leaders of the organization as well, because they also get this new sense that they can change the organization and its trajectory by involving their staff at a different kind of level. So it's a very empowering speech. And if I tell you that, for example, when Disney was brought in to a hospital, a children's hospital in America, and they did the equivalent of what I'm doing when I speak, because I've worked with Disney, I know this, that they talked to everyone in the hospital. Their aim was to improve outcomes for the patients, to make the experience much more settled, to make it a home from home for the children. So let me just tell you 3 things they did as a result of Disney's input. One was they turned all the little instruments, which can look very threatening to children, into a little cartoon where they showed that they all had names, the syringe, the stethoscope. So when it came down to the moment when a doctor would appear with these implements, the doctor would be able to call them the name that they saw in the cartoon when they arrived at the hospital. They also looked at how unsettled children were when they first arrived, even if a parent was there. But remember, the parent is probably going to be in and out. What they did was they took a film of the child's bedroom and they put it at the bottom of the bed so the child saw familiar surroundings, and it settled in very, very quickly. And then at the tail end of this, they said, is anyone who provides a service in this hospital not been part of this creative exercise? And they said, well, not unless you count the window cleaners. They said, bring the window cleaners in. The window cleaner company came in. Remember, they did every day, they did this tall glass building, and they said at the end of the session, we know what we'll do. And the next day, and for every day after that, they dressed up as superheroes. So the kids would see these superheroes outside cleaning the glass, smiling at them, and it lifted. Now, the end result was that the time spent in hospital was shortened. So it cut down costs. The outcomes were better. The period that it takes for a child to settle in without crying and getting agitated was down as well. That is what people take away from this speech, this sense that they have got something to offer that they've never believed they could offer. It's inspiring, it's empowering, it's enthusing, and it's fun. And there'll be lots of laughter as well. And laughter is a fantastic tool when you want to get people to shift their mindset.